Good morning, wonderful English 1150 short fiction class. I can't believe that we're already in Unit 8. I'm thrilled to see all of the work you did last week on thinking about reflecting upon the short stories we've sort of engaged with so far and those wonderful sort of new revisions onto those endings as well. Very thoughtful. You're picking up on the symbolism, the kinds of language, the repetitions, picking up on sort of course, the thematic structure of these short stories. So I'm really proud of what you've done. To sort of make my recording a little bit quicker today, I wanted to send to you a recording of me explaining to you, kind of recapping some of the discussions that we had in the Google Docs last week when we read The Cask of Amontillado. And so I wanted you to please read through that, listen to it. It's only about 4 minutes, but bravo on all of the comments that you've left for last week. I've also included an article that you might find exciting to read, especially since so many of you had the question, not sort of who did the crime, but what was the motive for murder in the Cask of Amontillado? Where does this all begin? And so there's a really great article that I suggest you kind of skim through if you have time to kind of see some opinions in the scholarly realm. On to week 8, unit 8 we go. A few notes. So we've kind of moved full circle here. We're beginning a unit on short stories, short stories. And if we remember from the beginning of class, sort of, short stories in general are a concentrated form, less than a novel, and dependent for its success on feeling and suggestion. And Edgar Allan Poe is someone who talked about short stories a lot, and he's the one, again, to attempt an analysis of the short story's aesthetics properties, and he stresses this idea of what's called unity of effect as the story's most characteristic feature. So something that can be kind of holistic, beginning, middle, end, all kind of encompassed within that, short few pages of that story. Today we're actually going to be moving on to thinking about short stories and how are they similar to or different than the ones that we've been reading so far. Entering into our Unit 8 material, I'd like to just point you to the short story that we're going to read today, or this week, I'm sorry, is from Jamaica Kincaid. I'll kind of explain all this in a minute. Here is our short story, Jamaica Kincaid's Girl. And as you'll see, it's only this sort of maybe 2 double-spaced pages of short story. And I've also included an optional reading by Lydia Davis, who has 5 short stories. You'll see that they verge on sort of poetry. Lots of images here, but here's, like, for example, one short story with some images. Here's one short story. Short story. And so what exactly do I mean by short story? What is this genre, subgenre within short stories? Their short stories are otherwise known as flash fiction. Sometimes you might have heard them called one smoke stories or palm of the hand stories. And Joyce Carol Oates has this essay called On Very Short Fictions, and she says they're nearly always experimental, exquisitely calibrated. We who love prose fiction love these miniature tales both to read and to write because they're so finite, so highly compressed, and highly charged. The rhythmic form of the short story is often more temperamentally akin to poetry than to conventional prose, which generally opens out to dramatize experience and to evoke emotion. In the smallest, tightest spaces, experience can only be suggested. Voice is everything. The melting of ice on the stove, consuming itself as we watch. So I want you to think this week a little bit about the weight of words. In poetry, what we do is we think very carefully about the placement, the rhythm, word choice, and sort of the arrangement of words, right? And so that's something that we think about very carefully in short stories as well. And so what I've included for you to do this week, before you get into thinking about this short story called Girl, I'd like you to think a little bit about what it means to invoke or think or to enhance or to examine style. Style is the characteristic way an author uses language to create literature. Style is the result of the writer's habitual use of certain rhetorical patterns, including sentence length and complexity. Is it a short sentence, one word? Is it multi-sentences? Is it many clauses or a single clause? Word choice, what kinds of words are used? Where do the words gain their origin from? Are they Latin words? Are they mostly Anglo-Saxon words? Are they translated words? Where does this language come from? And also the placement of the words. And punctuation. Do we have any punctuation? Do we not have punctuation? In this final slide deck, please post a response to the following by Wednesday. What I'd like you to do is think about language this week, really focusing in on what Joyce Carol Oates said was that sort of smallest, tightest spaces of experience. How do we get those through this condensation of language? In your slide, please include a word, phrase, or even a sentence that captures something about, quote, the highly compressed and highly charged, end quote, aspect of the short story language. You might say something about the etymology of a word, and what you can do is simply, you can try the Oxford English Dictionary if you have a login to the COD library, or you can just Google an online etymology finder, and that will give you kind of the base of the word. Where does it come from? Where does it originate? What does it actually mean? What kind of pieces form that particular word? The placement of particular phrase, you might talk about the placement or lack thereof of specific punctuation and or tone. A repetition, it could be a word that you see repeated in that short story. It could be the repetition of vowel sounds and assonance, or it could be the repetition of consonant sounds and alliteration. Or just the spirit of the language. Is it something that's sort of colloquial? Is it very lofty? Is it condemnatory? Any kind of related image is welcome, but not required in the slide deck. So if there's something that might help, maybe you take a screenshot of the etymology of the word, for example, or it doesn't have to necessarily come with an image this week. But please remember to add your name to the slide. And so to get you started, I have some sort of fun readings. Joyce Carol Oates is on very short fictions. This is sort of what I just read an excerpt. I've excerpted for you. So here's a little bit on her opinion of short fiction. Here's Lydia Davis, who I included below as the optional short reading for this week, the 5 short stories. This is Lydia Davis on reading short stories from 2015. And then before you read Jamaica Kincaid's On Girl, or I should say after you read the short story, you might want to see about her, read a little bit about her interview in Contemporary Novelists. Jamaica Kincaid talks about, you know, what she wrote here, and it's in interview style. So here we have Jamaica Kincaid and Alan Vorda, who's interviewing her. Talks a little bit about her short story. I've also included Jamaica Kincaid reading her short story, so if it helps some of you to kind of listen to the short story being read, feel free to follow along as she's going. Your comments this week should include, again, thinking about, I'd like you to just have, I'm not going to kind of limit it to counting the number of comments or replies. I would like everyone to have at least one comment and one reply, but I'm kind of just going to let you go free this week to, you know, feel free to say what you want, where you want to say it, and how much or how little you want to do that. You've all done really phenomenal jobs on this collaborative reading exercise, and I have no doubt that you'll continue to engage with each other, but I do want to see that you've had at least a comment and a reply so that we keep those momentum going in this short reading in our last collaborative reading exercise. If you see below, this again is the 5 short stories by Lydia Davis. This is your optional reading. It's also in the Google Doc if you click here. If you want to make comments there, feel free, but again, you don't need to. It's just so that you get a sense of some other short fiction that's out there. And last but not least, your final discussion board post for Unit 8, your endings, your short story endings. I'm so excited to see these. So building off your excellent alternate endings from last week, I want you in about 500 words. It can be less, that's fine, but no more. Post your fully fleshed new ending to your final Google site page. Again, think about language. This week we're thinking about style. What kinds of words are you going to use? Do you want to repeat any of the words that you've read or come from the short story that you're adapting? It's fine with me, and I'd like you to kind of imitate that so you move seamlessly from the short story of the one writer to your own short story. I would like you to post this on a Google site page this week. So you might decide to draft this particular ending in Word and just copy and paste it onto your Google site page. However you want to do that is fine with me. But you might title it Unit 7, 8 Endings plus the title of the short story you've recreated. You can feel free to rename the short story if you'd like. Please take care to proofread this final submission since this is sort of the last project and the last word. And I would encourage you, I'll kind of email you afterwards to share some of your final portfolios with me and also the department chair of English. Next to your written ending, I would like you to do one more thing. I would like you to insert a Vocaroo recording, something that you've done earlier in our class. I think it was the week that we were talking about A Good Man is Hard to Find, where you recorded your own voice. So I'd like you to record that voice. Remember, you don't have to download anything or log into Vocaroo. It's simply just online, an online recorder. And make sure to just begin by reading the original author's last sentence so that we kind of, it doesn't have to be the exact last sentence of the short story, but wherever you want to pick up with your own ending, read at least the last sentence from the previous author before you add in your own, so that it moves seamlessly from the original to your own. And at the very end of your recording, if you could just give a few quick comments or final reflection to this question, why did you make the choices you did? And again, it can be very brief, but just a little bit of insight into you, the author's ideas on these choices. Something you've already alluded to in your previous discussion board post. And then also, how do these short stories and reading them and learning about their formal elements, for example, the character, setting, plot and theme, point of view, tone, language, help you craft this particular ending? And again, you don't have to address all those formal elements, but I would like to see you kind of talking and using some of this language, since one of the course objectives was to kind of understand and reflect upon these particular elements. Please submit this short story by Wednesday this week, end of the day, and then reply to 5 peers by Friday. So again, the Wednesday, Friday due dates. I'm really excited. I was so happy for this class, and I really am still looking forward to reading your final writings, but I think it's so important that we've done some of the reading and then that you also have the opportunity to test some of your learning in terms of composition. So how do you understand short stories working, and then how does that impact and how does that sort of enhance your ability to also write, because the two are necessarily linked. I'm so thrilled to have been your instructor this past 8 weeks, and I hope that you please take this final student feedback. This is something I would like you to do. We're collecting all of this data throughout all the sections of English 1150 and English 1101, 1102. So please fill out this brief survey by Friday as well. It wouldn't take you very long, but I'd like you to reflect upon some of the course goals and objectives. How did you develop a critical appreciation of short stories? How did you learn to sort of analyze and discuss the themes and structural elements of short stories? And in what ways did you recognize the ways short stories function as statements about life? I'll be in contact with you through email, and thank you again for a fantastic course.